Okay, this is the Year 11 sharpening case for construction. As you can see, I bought construction pine from Bunnings. One bit's sort of straight, the other bit definitely isn't. But I bought it basically for lack of defects as opposed to straightness, because your job here is to straighten it out as your first part. Okay, I've just cut that board and set it on the table saw. As you can see, it's pretty good. The face is pretty flat. We don't need to do too much other than plane down the edge. But one thing that it does have, it's full of defects. You've got here a Waney edge, which is where the bark used to be on the timber, W-A-N-E-Y, as well as a loose knot that actually fell out. Okay. The reason why this board did not rock on the table is that it's not flat, but the ends are parallel, so the board is not cup or in-wind, also known as twisted. In-wind means that it's twisted. Out of wind means it's flat. So the two ends are parallel, but when you have a look on top, you can see there's a bow in the timber. Think like you're pulling back an archery bow. You can see that the centre of the timber is about 1 to 2 millimetres away from the line that I draw between the ends. So we've got to get rid of that bow as our first priority. Okay, so just before you start, this has been ground back, this edge. Just before you start, as you know, we've got the wet and dry glued to plate glass. That's the 800 grit or 1000 grit. Before you touch the 2000 grit paper, just get the 800 grit and just drag the plane blade that you've just sharpened back over it, just to remove any coarse burrs, B-U-R-R-S. I'd leave the burrs alone. Just on both sides, just once, just to remove any loose edges. While I'm at it, that's pretty good, as in that 800 grit has taken off all the oxide right on the up edge, so that means it's flat. That's a good thing, so we don't need to do any flattening of the back. Now from here, polish it about 6 or 8 times on your 2000 grit, just practice sharpening stone, and pick it up, hold it in your jig, hold it and just drag it back. Once, drag it back twice, and you can see a very fine edge. I hope that's in focus. You can see a very fine bevel on that plane blade. That's all you need, polished on the back, so you can almost see your face. The other thing I did forget was a bit of paper. So, final thing we need to do is just on a bit of paper, which is actually timber fibres mixed with really, really fine clay, which basically isn't abrasive, I am bending that edge backwards and forwards. The little bit of fine burr that was left after the 2000 grit has now been removed. And that edge is now sharp enough to neatly slice through paper. That's how sharp the planes and chisels have got to be when you're working with pine. School planes, as you know, tend to be a little bit beaten up, but there's the body of a plane, there's the frog, there's the adjustment screw. This one's working okay. First thing, check the frog is tight, which this one is. Get your plane blade with the bevel side down. Put in your cap iron or backing iron and slide it up so it's about 1 millimetre, 1.5 millimetres off the edge. Like so. Then drop it in. See how it's now sitting on the lateral adjustment lever? And you should not be able to move that plane by finger pressure, the plane blade. See how I can't move that with finger pressure? The adjustment on the cap's about right. And just finishing up, wind it out. There you go. And just sighting down the back of it, you might be able to see there the blade's just coming out. So from here I'm just going to sight down the end, finish cleaning it up, and we're good. Okay, to use a hand plane, your best friend is an old candle. This is all gummy, this bottom of this plane. So it needs a bit of wax on it to make it slippery. We need to take off the ends of this from earlier on I showed you. How do you use a plane? These handles, this plane was made for the mass American market in 1920, after the First World War, when everybody was rich, before the Great Depression. This handle was designed for a homeowner to grab that had never ever touched a tool before. That front handle is actually the biggest problem why school kids and people that don't know how to use a plane cannot plane square. Don't touch it. Put your thumb in there where I've got mine. Work with your thumb there. If your teacher can show you a picture of an old wooden plane, they didn't even have a front handle. The tradesman physically leant over and grabbed it. If I have to use a handle, that's how I hold the handle. So it's just pushing down. It's too tall, this rocks the plane side to side. Same thing with the back handle, all my pressure's down low. Timber's got direction. When I run my hands across that board, that direction is a lot smoother than this one. I'm actually going to flip it round. Now I had to take off a bit off that edge, a bit off this edge. So, see the plane is not even cutting in the middle, it's only catching on the edges. The other thing, I'm standing with my feet comfortably, you can't see it, a shoulder width apart, about that far apart. All my weight at the moment's on the back leg. Push down, see where my hands are? And I am just literally driving the plane with my back leg. Planing is a leg exercise, it's not an arm exercise. The arm's just guiding. The other thing, see how I'm keeping the plane going straight until there. I don't lift the plane up here, I don't stop there, I just sail straight through with the plane in a straight line. Down this end. It looks easy because of the wax on the bottom of the sole of the plane. If I didn't have that wax on it, we'd be in a lot of difficulty. Let's eyeball down this. I'll go around and check the camera. That's a lot straighter. You can see up the far end, I still need to take a little bit off to get it absolutely flat and straight. So it's still curled a little bit away up the back end where I'm pointing with the finger. So probably 2 strokes of the plane there. The other thing students do is that planes cut fairly quickly. They just keep on planing for more than they need and take too much off. That end's the one I think I need to work on now. It's sitting up the front. Yeah, not too awful bad. Just eyeballing down it. A little bit high. You can see up there, look at the far edge as I lift it up. I can see that there now is higher than this corner here. This corner's now high. I need to take a little bit off that and I'm done. That'll do us. Now all we need to do, this is where you can go crazy a little bit. We've got to take off with a hand plane that round. If you want to, you could run it through the bandsaw, take off a millimetre or two, but it won't take long. Notice now all my body weight's on the back leg, and I'm just planing straight through. I've already checked it for grain direction. I'm planing it in the smooth option. I've just got it hard up against the bench hook there as a stop. That's better. You should be getting close on full width shavings, like so, if you're doing it right. If you're getting part shavings, it probably means either you've planed a round surface on the timber or it's not flat yet. How am I getting it? By making sure, see where my front finger is? Always pushing down there. When my hand's up there, it rocks the plane around. Keep your thumb down the bottom. I'll just work quickly, full speed, just to get this done. So here, there's the edge we squared off, there's the face we flattened. You can see now when I bring the square down, that's sitting pretty close. That's sitting, that edge is just up a bit, that edge was just up a bit. That's perfectly square. Hold the wood against the wood, drop it down slowly. That's just up just a little bit. So I've just got to take one shaving off the upper side to clean it up, but it's got to be an incredibly faint shaving. So I'll just wind the plane back in a bit. Too much. I'm just winding out the plane so it just cuts. Done. Now, lay the plane on its side when you're using it. Try and keep the blade intact. Nice and square. Nice and square. Nice and square. Perfect. That's all I want you to do. When you're done, you mark it with a face mark and a face edge mark. That is what you measure everything off. Okay, I'm just talking over the noise of the dust extractor. I can go with it, just excuse me for shouting. I'm going to set that marking gauge to 35 mil. At the moment 34. $35 mil. Working off your face edge and your face. I'm going to just mark a line across both edges, working off your face. This is why I specifically wasn't worried about that Waney edge when I had that timber, because I'd intentionally planned to take it out. I'll darken it up with a pencil so I can see it. Okay, Now here's half an hour of your life you'll never get back. Plane that's sort of close, we'll finish it up in a thicknesser. But your job here is just learning to plane. Once we're done, we'll do the same thing for width. So we've got the face, edge. I've set thickness, then width. I've gone different to normal, but it's 6 1/2 dozen. Normally your timber is FEWTEL. Face, edge. I'll do it in texture because I'm getting rid of this. Face, edge, width, thickness. Shoot one end square, cut it to length, shoot the other end square. We've done the face, we've got that face now parallel and flat. We've got one edge at 90 degrees to the face. Now we're working on the width. So, running my hand along that, it runs smoother in that direction, so that's the way I'm going to plane it. Up the end I've just got a G-clamps cutting board there as a planing stop. And here goes. And I'll see you in about 20 minutes. So there it is after 1 minute. I've already taken 2 mil off. To make your life easier, you might even want to consider running that through a bandsaw. But making sure, there's your finish line, finish the bandsaw cut about there. So leave yourself 2 to 3 mil. I'm just going to go and rip that off in a bandsaw. There we go. That looks a bit easier now. You've definitely got a rough sawn edge to clean up. It won't feel like it's doing much for the first view because it's only taking the high point. And there it goes. Now it's getting more or less about 1 millimetre off the line, about 1 millimetre off the line. And this end, about 2 mil off. And we're getting there. Now we're less than 1 millimetre to go all round. The plane blade's getting a bit hard to push, so you need the candle stub again. Don't be afraid to ask the teacher to get a candle stub out. There. A lot less effort needed. Nice full width shavings. Exactly what I want to see. Like so. More or less full width. One on the right hand side, one up the middle, one up the left. Right hand side, middle, left. All this planing is coming from the back leg. I'm almost on the line there. I'm miles away from it here. I'm miles away from it, I'm miles away from it. I'm going to put a cross there and make sure I leave them behind. If I plane off that pencil cross, I'm going to put another one back. until I get it back level. Don't forget to keep checking the distance against your marks. I'm only working on the end here because that was the high spot. I'm only high from there back. Now when you look, you can see that it's more or less uniform thickness all the way across both sides. Now I'll just finish it off. One, two, three. Bit more on the end here still. That'll do me for that. One, last one, forward shaving, done. Using a bandsaw to get rid of most of the width, that was 15 minutes. As you can see, I've got like the edge of the marking gauge across most of that timber. There's the groove from the marking gauge sitting on the corner. That's exactly what I want to see. That's both sides. Final thing, we'll set the marking gauge to width. We want to just remove that last pencil round. So I'll just take 5 mils off it. Width of that is currently 89. Let's make it a nice round 80. So we end up with 80. Face edge. Put the gauge on the face edge. Just mark it all the way down. Put the gauge on the face edge. Mark it all the way down. Oops, don't like that. There. There's a mark there I don't like, I'm going to redo. Down there where I was working miles away from my body. Let me clean that up. At the end of the day I'm going to remove that with a chamfer so it doesn't matter. Done. Okay, over to the bandsaw, cut off the excess. So that is 80. That is 35. So you've turned your timber into a bit of 80 by 35. So there it is off the saw with about 0.5 millimetre left to take off it. Here I've got that knot sitting on the end, which is what the thump was. I'm just going to set the blade a lot finer. Put a bit more wax on the timber or wax on the plain blade. Once again, nice Full width shavings is what I need to see. Same width as the timber. Full length. I'm actually looking here for the marking gauge line to come visible. That's what I'm doing at the moment. Like that, I'm almost there. Probably 3 shavings. 2, 3. 1 more, 2 more. 1, 2. Notice I'm not stopping on the end. I'll make sure I'm in view. I'm not stopping the plane on end. I keep pushing horizontally till it's out there. I'll just do 1 more shaving for posterity. Watch the end of the timber. The plane stops out there. And that's plane to width. Okay, so we need to set this at 280 long when we're finished. I've got the extra bit there. I've given you 900 mils, so if there's a knot or if there's a defect, you can cut around it. I've bought the marking knives specifically for you. I have forgotten to bring a square across. We have the squares. So, first one, I'll just measure a couple of mil off the end because that's still a saw cut end that I'll need to clean up. So 282, you make a knife mark. That's where I want to keep it. That's the nice straight side of the knife. There is our mark. 280 mil. Just once again, get the marking knife. Got it square against the blade, it's running off. There you go. I'm always running the marking knife into the waste for exactly that reason. There you go. Done. So that there's scrap, and because that's nice and neat, actually see the mark, we'll just cut out that defect. There you go. That first marking knife line's a lot cleaner because I was more careful. 280 mil. 280. Make a knife mark, make sure I'm still on the camera. Yep. The blade of the square is on the work I want to keep, just in case the knife runs off the gauge again, or the line again. There it goes. So there is my knife mark lined out. Now same. I should have been laying out on the face edge, I just realised, but anyway, I'll keep on going. You should always measure off your face edge. One. Two. Going to stick the knife physically in that knife line there to locate the square. See, I just pop the knife in, slide the square up to it. Now everything's perfectly aligned. Same thing here. Like so. like so. Like so. Now we finish up measuring off this cut. There's the knife mark, perfectly aligned, all the way around. So, there is our layout. Now what I'm going to do, I'll put the knife away. Perfect, don't need to shout over that. Now I've got to lay out the stone so it's sitting in the middle. .42mm. Remember, I've allowed 1 extra mil. Was it 2 extra mil? I've allowed 1 extra mil. I've allowed 1.5 extra mil on that end. 42, 41. There you go. 40. 40. 43, take away the 2. That's good enough. Something jammed in the pencil sharpener. Oh well, I'll open this one up. So, let's just make a mark. 40, 40. Okay, we know the mark off the end there is 40. So I'm going to, oh, what have I got there? Sorry. There you go, 40.5, 40.5. Done. Layout is made. And mark off the edges. To centre this stone now, we're going to use a mortising gauge. I was out by about 3/4 of a mil. See the V mark there to tell me which one I'm working off. To centre this stone. There it is sitting on edge. We use a mortise gauge. 32mm, so I've got to come in 16mm either side. First thing, set the width. Set the distance between those pins to match the width of the stone. A little bit less. That's just delicate hand pressure. Done. Outside I said the magic number was 16mm. 14. 15. 16mm. Let's see how close I got. I'm going to make a mark in the scrap. There's the scrap. One side. Coming up from the other way. I am 1/2 millimetre or 1/4 millimetre too fat on the measurement there, so I've just got to knock it in just a smidge. One. Two. Perfect. That's aligned. So now I use this to mark out, just scratch neatly between my pencil lines. Stop when you get to the other end. Notice I'm laying out off the face edge. Done. So I've just laid out the housing that I need to cut. Can't see the pin. I'll go back later on, find that other pin. I've just laid out the housing that I need. Okay, just continuing. We've now got this marked out, ready to go. The thickness of the stone is 24 mil. Let's go down 13 either side. So we're going to cut a 13 mil deep recess there, 13 mil deep housing or a recess there. Get a permanent marker, 13 mil on your chisel. Okay, that's 14, so I know to be just a little, leave that a little bit proud. Okay, just so I can make sure that I get it right, that was the scrap. If I'm going to put a clamp on, I'm going to make sure I'm clamping on the scrap. Now I'm going to start chopping out that waste. There's a sharp chisel. Make sure that it doesn't bounce when you hit it. Make sure it's firm, make sure it's G-clamped down. If you need to, clamp that down there. I'm on the borderline of wanting one, but I'll just leave it with one G-clamp. Mallets help. Let's just sharpen up that chisel. So there's the bevel ground on the front edge, quite happily. Done. There's the back polished. There's the front polished. There's a sharp chisel. Now, see the angle of this edge? When I hit that chisel in, that's the start. Look at what happens when I knock it in. See how it travels in at the same angle as that same angle as the grind. Let me remark that 13 mil again. I just took it off. Done. So, it's quite easy to chop out this housing. Notice how I'm not on the lines, intentionally. There's no such thing as gentle here. I've started, 1, 2, 3, just knocked in a line. Now, I'm walking the chisel around, so I'm taking that much, hammer, twist. I'll make sure the whole chisel's actually visible in the frame. Yep. Hammer, twist. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses for this. Not so much for you, but for your classmates. As you can see, it is definitely knocking out waste. I think I've got about 10 minutes of video left, so I'll just walk all the way down and I'll just finish cutting out most of this and I'll come back to the other end. With a sharp chisel, it will not take you long at all to do this. When the chisel gets blunt, stop and sharpen it. To cut out with the chisel, hold it about that angle, hammer, twist. Notice I've got my depth mark there, so I know when I'm close. With a sharp chisel, it's easy. When the chisel gets blunt, stop and sharpen it. You'll know it's blunt because it's not cutting through the pine. See how it's cutting nice, neat, sharp, clean cuts through the pine? When it stops doing that, stop and sharpen it. Okay, hopefully this works. I've been using uniform weight on the chisel as I've been cutting. So you can see the depth of those, there it goes, finally snapped into focus. The depth of most of that has stayed uniform. Obviously just loosened up a bit on it here. I've got to go back a bit deeper. So I'll go back through and I'll chip that out again. Okay, just light there because I don't want to take out too much. Now, we have the depth already marked. There, I'm exactly 13 mil. I'm going to go around the edge now. You don't even need, let me check to see what's in focus. I'll just zoom out a bit. Okay. You don't need a mallet because the chisel is sharp. Put the chisel in the right position, lean on it with your shoulder, just push your body weight down to chop stuff out. I'm still off the line, I'm not exactly on my knife line. I'm about probably a millimetre off, half a millimetre off. So just use your shoulder to do the fine paring. Okay, that needs a bit more yet. I'm back on the mallet again. Got to take it down about another 4 mil. So here goes. Not as hard as last time because I don't need to go so deep. The first time, if I'm meant to be 13 millimetres deep but I'm down 4 mil short, then I'm clearly in 8 mil deep at the moment. So just going in the rest of the 4 mil hopefully. And so on all the way to the end. Here we are partway through the second one. As you can see, I'm going down about 4 mil with the second chop. Let me just finish that off. I'll actually see if I can set this up here. It might even work this way. Yep. Close are we now? See how I'm fairly close to the mark there? That's what I wanted. There's a fair way out. I'm basically keeping an eye on that black line to guide how hard I'm hitting the chisel. I don't really want to go too deep. Hammer, twist. Now I make basically at the end of this, I'm going to turn the chisel round. Just start chopping straight down. Let's have a look at how it's cutting. Chisel, oddly enough, is starting to get blunt after around about 400 or 500 shots. So I'm going to stop and sharpen the chisel again. So here's where I'm at the moment with it. Hopefully it focuses, there it goes. I'm still inside the lines all along, but I've basically cut out the housing. Okay, so now here, let's go along and have a look. So I'm basically sitting at getting close to depth. Getting close to depth. I'm at depth there. I'm getting close to depth. Let's now just go along and finish this off. Just set that depth on the combination square to 13 mil. Now I can sort of see where I am. Okay, that looks good enough, so we'll just go through. Now I'm going to just pare back lightly. I have the chisel resharpened. I'm just paring back lightly to match. Notice I'm not at the ends yet. I just actually popped a sliver off the project there with paring, which shouldn't have happened. To avoid that, let me now, has it shown? Yes, there's a large chip just there. I'll find it and I'll glue it back together before I go further. To avoid that from chipping any further, I'm now going to sit the chisel on the line and I'm just going to wiggle it in by hand. Notice the G-clamp clearly in place, holding everything down. It's just simply to avoid any more chipping. Come over this end, do exactly the same. I'm physically on the line. Okay, that's got to come down about 1 mil or so. Notice hammer, twist. Hammer, twist. Hammer, twist. How's that looking now? About on the mark. So that's really the mark we're aiming at, just there. I'm just taking off all the uneven base of the trench at the moment. I'm not digging in deep at all. See how I've got the chisel just more or less paring out the surface. I'm now going to sneak up on the actual, still finishing shy of it. This up here, as you can see, I'm miles off it. I'm still about 2 mil short. Still about 2 mil short up here, so I'll just go through and clean that out. I've only got to go down a little bit, so I'm not hitting hard. Hammer, twist. You can see the difference in height there quite happily, I hope. There's a deeper half, there's a shallower half. Let's go through here now and just continue. That'll do us. So that's now sitting close to 14 mil all round. I'll go and set up the next stage.